The whispers started the moment Lily Norwood stepped off the dusty stagecoach in Red Bluff, California, clutching a worn leather-bound book of fairy tales against her chest, like it was the most precious thing in the world. It was May 1878, and the small mining town sprawled along the Sacramento River had seen its share of peculiar folks. But a 22-year-old woman who still believed in happily ever afters was something else entirely. The other passengers had snickered behind gloved hands during the 3-day journey, especially when she had pulled out the book during their overnight stops and read by lamplight, her lips moving silently as she traced the words with one finger. Lily ignored them all. She had learned long ago that people would mock what they did not understand, and she understood that most folks had forgotten how to dream. Her mother had died when she was only 6 years old, leaving behind nothing but debts and that single book of fairy tales. And her father had remarried within a year to a woman named Margaret who had 2 daughters of her own. Catherine and Susan had been relentless in their cruelty, calling her foolish and simple-minded for reading the same stories over and over, for believing that somewhere in this harsh world there could be magic and true love and courage rewarded. "You are 22 years old," Margaret had sneered just a week before, standing in the cramped Boston apartment where they had lived since Lily's father had lost his merchant business. "Still reading children's stories, still waiting for some prince to rescue you. You are pathetic." Her stepsisters had laughed, their voices high and sharp like breaking glass. Catherine had snatched the book from Lily's hands and tossed it across the room, its spine cracking against the wall. Susan had added, "No man wants a woman who lives in fantasies. You will die alone and miserable, just like you deserve." But Lily's father, weakened by consumption and guilt over the life he had given his only blood daughter, had done one final kindness before he passed. He had used the last of his savings to purchase her passage west, and had written to his brother Thomas in Red Bluff, asking him to take Lily in. Thomas Norwood owned a general store and had agreed, though his letter had been brief and perfunctory. Lily did not expect warmth or welcome, but she expected a chance to start over, away from the women who had made her life a daily torment. The main street of Red Bluff was wide and dusty, lined with wooden buildings that looked like they had been thrown together in haste. Miners, cowboys, and rough-looking men lounged outside saloons, their eyes tracking her movement as she stood uncertainly with her single trunk beside her. She wore a simple brown traveling dress, her dark blonde hair pulled back in a modest bun, and she knew she looked exactly like what she was, a woman alone and out of place. "You Miss Norwood?" a gruff voice made her turn. A short, balding man with spectacles stood before her, his apron dusty with flour. "Yes, I am Lily Norwood. Are you my Uncle Thomas?" "That would be me." He did not smile or offer any greeting beyond a curt nod. "Store is this way. You can stay in the room above it. I will expect you to work for your keep, cooking, cleaning, minding the counter when I am occupied elsewhere." Lily swallowed her disappointment and nodded. "Of course. Thank you for taking me in." Thomas grunted and hefted her trunk with surprising strength for a man his size. She followed him down the street to a building with a hand-painted sign that read, "Norwood General Store." The interior was dim and smelled of tobacco, coffee, and leather. Shelves lined the walls, stocked with everything from canned goods to ammunition. A narrow staircase in the back led to a small room with a bed, a washstand, and a single window overlooking an alley. "Meals are at dawn and dusk. Do not be late. Do not steal. Do not bring shame on my establishment." Thomas set her trunk down with a thud and left without another word. Lily sat on the edge of the bed and allowed herself a moment of tears. This was not the fresh start she had imagined during the long journey west. But she was free of Margaret and her stepsisters, and that counted for something. She unpacked her few belongings, smoothing her hands over the fairy tale book and placing it carefully on the small table beside her bed. The days blurred together in a monotonous routine. She woke before dawn to prepare breakfast for Thomas, a simple meal of eggs and bread. Then she swept the store, organized inventory, and stood behind the counter serving customers. Most were polite enough, though some of the miners leered at her in ways that made her skin crawl. Thomas barely spoke to her beyond barking orders, and she learned quickly that he was a man who cared only for profit and propriety. In the evenings, after the store closed and supper was cleaned away, Lily would retreat to her room and read by candlelight. The stories transported her away from the loneliness and drudgery of her existence. She read about princesses who were kind and brave, about heroes who fought dragons and crossed oceans, about true love that conquered all obstacles. The other women in town, the few times she encountered them at church or the market, would whisper and point. Still reading fairy tales, one woman muttered loud enough for Lily to hear. At her age, ridiculous. My daughter stopped believing in such nonsense when she was 10. Another added with a disdainful sniff. Lily kept her head high and her book close. She would not let them take this from her, the one thing that brought light into her world. If they thought her foolish, so be it. It was on a sweltering afternoon in July, nearly 2 months after her arrival, that everything changed. Lily was restocking shelves when the door swung open with such force that it banged against the wall. A man filled the doorway, and she meant that literally. He had to duck his head to enter, his shoulders so broad they seemed to block out the sunlight behind him. He was the largest man Lily had ever seen, easily standing over 6 feet tall with a frame built of solid muscle. His hair was dark brown and fell past his shoulders, wild and untamed, and a thick beard covered the lower half of his face. He wore buckskin trousers and a shirt that strained across his chest and arms, and at his side hung a knife that looked like it could fell a tree. His eyes, a startling shade of green, swept the store before landing on her. "Help you?" Thomas appeared from the back room, his voice tight with the particular tone he used for customers he did not trust. "Need supplies," the man said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Salt, flour, coffee, ammunition. Enough for 3 months." Thomas pulled out a ledger. "That will cost you. You have coin." The man reached into a leather pouch at his waist and dropped a handful of gold nuggets on the counter. Thomas's eyes widened, and his demeanor shifted instantly from suspicion to obsequiousness. Of course. We can accommodate you, Mr. Finn Kaine." The man did not offer his hand or any pleasantries. His gaze drifted back to Lily, who had frozen with a can of peaches in her hand, staring at him. "Miss Norwood, do not stand there gawking. Help Mr. Kaine gather his supplies." Thomas's sharp tone snapped her back to attention. "Yes, of course, I apologize." Lily set down the can and smoothed her apron, her cheeks burning. She grabbed a piece of paper and a pencil. "Shall we start with the flour? How many pounds?" 50, Finn said, watching her with an intensity that made her nervous. She wrote it down with trembling fingers. "And salt?" 20 pounds. Coffee, 10 pounds. Beans, rice, sugar." He listed items in a monotone, and she scribbled quickly, trying to ignore the way her heart hammered in her chest. Up close, he was even more imposing, all hard angles and raw power. But there was something else in his eyes, something that looked almost like loneliness. They worked in silence, Lily gathering items from the shelves and stacking them on the counter while Finn stood with his arms crossed, his presence dominating the small space. When she had to climb a ladder to reach a high shelf, she felt his eyes on her and nearly lost her footing. His hand shot out, steadying the ladder with a grip that did not waver. "Careful," he said, the single word carrying a weight of concern that surprised her. "Thank you," she whispered. It took nearly an hour to assemble everything. Thomas calculated the cost with greedy precision, and Finn paid without haggling. As Lily helped load the supplies into a sturdy pack mule waiting outside, she finally worked up the courage to speak. "You live in the mountains." The question came out more timid than she intended. Finn glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Yes. Is it very isolated? That is the point." He secured the last bundle with practiced efficiency, his large hands moving with surprising deftness. "Why do you ask?" Lily shrugged, feeling foolish. "I just wondered. It must be beautiful up there, away from everything." Something shifted in his expression, a slight softening around his eyes. "It is quiet, peaceful, no one to bother you." "That sounds wonderful," she said and meant it. Finn studied her for a long moment, and she had the unsettling feeling he could see straight through to her soul. Then he nodded once, mounted his horse, and rode away leading the mule, disappearing down the street without a backward glance. "Stay away from that one," Thomas warned when she came back inside. "Finn Kaine is trouble. He lives up in the mountains like a savage, only comes to town a few times a year. Some say he killed a man back east. Others say he is just crazy. Either way, he is not the type you should be talking to." Lily said nothing, but that night as she lay in bed, she thought about the mountain man with the green eyes and the quiet voice. Something about him had touched a chord deep within her, something she could not name. She opened her fairy tale book and read the story of Beauty and the Beast, about a girl who saw past a fearsome exterior to the gentle soul beneath. The weeks passed, and Lily fell back into her routine. The summer heat was oppressive, and tempers in town ran short. She witnessed 2 brawls outside the saloon and heard gunshots more than once in the night. Red Bluff was rough and lawless, and she kept to herself as much as possible. One evening in late August, a group of miners came into the store just before closing, already drunk and looking for trouble. Thomas had left early to attend some business meeting, leaving Lily alone. She tried to maintain a professional demeanor as they stumbled around, knocking items off shelves and laughing uproariously. "Well, look at this," one of them slurred, a burly man with a scar across his cheek. The fairy tale girl all by herself. Lily's blood ran cold. "Gentlemen, I am afraid the store is closing. If you need something, please make your purchases now." "Oh, we need something," another said, grinning with blackened teeth. "We need some entertainment." "Why do not you read us one of your little stories?" They had moved to block the door. Lily's mind raced, searching for an escape. "Please leave. I do not want any trouble." The scarred man reached across the counter and grabbed her wrist, his grip painful. "We are not leaving until you show us some hospitality, maybe a kiss for each of us." "Let go of me." Lily tried to pull away, but he was too strong. The lady said, "Let go." The voice came from the doorway, and every head turned. Finn Kaine stood there, his massive frame filling the entrance, his hand resting on the handle of his knife. His eyes were cold as winter ice. The miners hesitated. There were 4 of them and only one of him, but something in Finn's stance suggested he could take all 4 without breaking a sweat. The scarred man released Lily's wrist and straightened, trying to muster bravado. "This is not your concern, mountain man." "It is now." Finn took a step forward. "You have 3 seconds to leave before I make you leave." The miners exchanged glances. Drunk as they were, they recognized genuine danger when they saw it. They shuffled toward the door, muttering curses and threats under their breath. Finn did not move until they had all passed him and disappeared into the street. Then he turned to Lily. "Are you hurt?" She was shaking, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "No, thank you. I do not know what would have happened if you had not arrived." Finn walked to the counter, his expression dark. "Where is your uncle?" "He had a meeting. He should be back soon." Lily rubbed her wrist where the miner had grabbed her, seeing the red marks already forming. "I did not expect trouble. Usually people are civil enough." "Usually is not always." Finn's gaze dropped to her wrist, and his jaw tightened beneath his beard. "You should not be left alone here." "It is not safe." "I do not have much choice," Lily said softly. "This is my life now." Finn was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Why do they call you the fairy tale girl?" Heat flooded her cheeks. "Because I read fairy tales. I know it is foolish. Everyone tells me so. But I cannot help it. They bring me comfort." "Why is that foolish?" His question caught her off guard. "Because I am a grown woman. Because fairy tales are for children. Because believing in magic and true love and happy endings is naive and stupid." The words poured out of her, all the mockery and shame she had endured crystallizing into bitter sentences. Finn shook his head slowly. "Who told you that?" "Everyone. My stepmother, my stepsisters, the women in this town. Even my uncle thinks I am ridiculous. They are wrong." He said it with such finality that Lily blinked. "What? They are wrong," Finn repeated. "There is nothing foolish about hope, about believing in something better. The world tries to beat that out of people, make them hard and cynical. The fact that you have held on to it means you are stronger than all of them." Lily felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. "You truly believe that?" "I do." Finn glanced toward the door. "I came to town for more ammunition. Did not expect to find trouble, but I am glad I did." "So am I." Lily managed a smile. "Would you like me to get the ammunition for you?" They completed the transaction in companionable silence. When Finn prepared to leave, he paused at the door and looked back at her. "If anyone bothers you again, you tell me. I will handle it." "How would I tell you? You live up in the mountains." "I will be checking in more often." It was not a question or a request, simply a statement of fact. Then he was gone, leaving Lily standing in the empty store with a warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the summer heat. True to his word, Finn began coming to town every week. He always had some excuse: needed nails, wanted tobacco, was low on coffee. But Lily noticed that he timed his visits for when the store was open and often lingered, making conversation that grew easier and more natural with each encounter. She learned that he had come west 5 years ago after his parents and younger sister had died in a fire back in Pennsylvania. He had been 23 at the time, drowning in grief and guilt for not being there to save them. The mountains had offered him solace, a place to heal away from the pitying looks and empty condolences. "You ever get lonely?" Lily asked one afternoon as she packaged up the lamp oil he had requested. Finn considered the question. "Sometimes, but I prefer loneliness to false company. Most people are not worth the trouble." "Am I trouble?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. He looked at her with those piercing green eyes. "The best kind." Lily's heart skipped a beat. She was falling for this man, she realized. This huge, gruff mountain man who had shown her more kindness and respect in a few weeks than she had received in years. But what could come of it? He lived in isolation by choice, and she was trapped in a life of servitude to her uncle. As if reading her thoughts, Finn said, "Your uncle does not treat you well." It was not a question. Lily sighed. "He took me in when I had nowhere else to go. I owe him." "You owe him nothing. You work hard, harder than any employee he could hire. He should be grateful." "Perhaps." Lily wrapped the oil carefully. "But gratitude is not something Uncle Thomas feels often." Finn's expression darkened. "If you ever want to leave, you let me know." "Leave to where?" Lily laughed without humor. I have no money, no prospects. At least here I have a roof over my head and food to eat. You deserve more than just survival, Finn said quietly. Those words haunted Lily for days. She did deserve more, did she not? But wanting more and achieving it were entirely different things. September arrived with cooler temperatures and the first hints of autumn color in the hills. Lily had been in Red Bluff for 4 months, and while her circumstances had not changed, her heart certainly had. She looked forward to Finn's visits with an eagerness that made her feel like a character in one of her beloved stories. He brought her small gifts: wildflowers he had picked in the high meadows, a smooth stone from a mountain stream, a carved wooden bird he had whittled by his campfire. I am not good with words, he explained when he gave her the bird, but I wanted you to have something. Lily held the little carving tenderly. It was a robin, its wings spread as if in flight. It is beautiful. Thank you, Finn. It is meant to remind you that you can fly away from here if you want. You are not trapped. But she felt trapped, caught between the safe misery of her current life and the terrifying possibility of something more. What was Finn truly offering? Friendship? Something deeper? She could not ask, too afraid of the answer either way. The turning point came in October. Thomas had been in a foul mood for days, his business suffering due to competition from a new store that had opened on the other end of town. He took his frustrations out on Lily, criticizing everything she did and finding fault where none existed. You are worthless, he snapped one evening after she had accidentally broken a jar of preserves. Just like your father, he was a failure, and so are you. I should never have agreed to take you in. The words struck deeper than any of Margaret's cruelty ever had. This was her father's own brother, speaking of him with such contempt. Lily fled to her room, tears streaming down her face, and pulled out her fairy tale book. But for the first time, the stories offered no comfort. They seemed hollow and distant, fantasies that mocked her painful reality. She was still crying when she heard a commotion downstairs. Raised voices, one of them unmistakably Finn's. She crept to the top of the stairs and listened. "Where is she?" Finn demanded. "That is none of your concern. Leave my store." "I heard you yelling at her from the street. Where is Lily? She is my niece and my employee. How I speak to her is my business." There was a sound of something heavy hitting wood, and Lily imagined Finn's fist slamming on the counter. "Not anymore. I am taking her out of here. You cannot just take her. I have rights. You have nothing. She is a grown woman, free to make her own choices. Lily." Finn's voice carried up the stairs. "Lily, come down here." She descended slowly, her face blotchy from crying. Finn took one look at her and something dangerous flashed in his eyes. He turned to Thomas. "If you ever made her cry again, I will tear this store apart with my bare hands." "Do you understand me?" Thomas paled but tried to maintain his authority. "You are threatening me. I am promising you." Finn held out his hand to Lily. "Come with me. You do not have to stay here." Lily stared at his outstretched hand, this massive, calloused hand that had shown her gentleness and protection. Her heart pounded. This was the moment, the choice that would define everything that came after. "She has nowhere to go," Thomas said smugly. "What are you going to do? Take her to your cabin in the mountains? Ruin her reputation completely?" "I am going to marry her," Finn said, his eyes never leaving Lily's face. "If she will have me." The world seemed to stop. Lily could not breathe, could not think. "What?" Finn took a step closer. "I know this is sudden. I know I am not much, just a man who lives alone in the mountains. But I can give you a home where you will be safe and valued, where you can read your fairy tales without anyone mocking you, where you will never have to feel small again." His voice softened. "I care for you, Lily, more than I have cared for anyone in a long time. Marry me." "You barely know me," Lily whispered. "I know enough. I know you are kind and brave and strong. I know you deserve better than this." He gestured around the store with contempt. "I know I want to spend every day making sure you smile instead of cry." Lily looked at her uncle, at the small room above the store that had been her prison, at the life of servitude and scorn that stretched before her. Then she looked at Finn, this unexpected blessing, this answer to prayers she had been afraid to voice. She placed her hand in his. "Yes, I will marry you." The wedding took place 3 days later in the small church at the edge of town. The minister was a kindly man who asked no questions beyond confirming they were both of age and willing. Lily wore her best dress, a simple blue cotton she had mended countless times. Finn had cleaned up, trimming his beard and pulling his hair back, wearing clothes he admitted he had bought that morning from a tailor. There were no guests beyond the 2 witnesses. The minister pulled in from the street. As Lily spoke her vows, her voice shaking but sure, she felt like she was living in one of her fairy tales. The outcast girl, scorned and dismissed, finding her unexpected hero. When Finn slipped a simple gold band onto her finger and said, "I promise to protect you and cherish you for all my days," she believed him completely. They left Red Bluff that afternoon. Lily had packed her few belongings, including her precious book of fairy tales, into a small bag. Finn had 2 horses waiting, and he lifted her onto one with ease, adjusting the stirrups to fit her legs. "It is a half-day ride to the cabin," he explained as they set off. "The trail is rough in places. Stay close." Lily had never been much of a rider, but the horse was gentle, and Finn set an easy pace. They followed the Sacramento River north before turning east into the foothills. The landscape transformed around them, the dusty flatlands giving way to rolling hills covered in oak and pine. The air grew cooler and sweeter, scented with sage and earth. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, they climbed higher into the mountains. Lily was sore and exhausted, but she refused to complain. This was her choice, her adventure, and she would not falter now. Finally, as twilight deepened into night, they arrived at a clearing. A cabin stood beneath towering pines, solidly built from hewn logs with a stone chimney at one end. A small barn stood nearby, and Lily could hear the sound of running water. "There is a creek just beyond the barn," Finn said, dismounting and coming to help her down. His hands spanned her waist easily as he lifted her from the saddle, and he held her a moment longer than necessary, their faces close. "Welcome home, Lily. Home." The word resonated through her entire being. She looked up at the stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky, brighter and more numerous than she had ever seen in town, and felt something shift inside her. This was home, with this man, in this wild, beautiful place. Finn carried her bag inside while she stood in the doorway, taking it all in. The cabin was a single large room with a bed in one corner, a stone fireplace dominating one wall, a rough-hewn table with 2 chairs, shelves lined with books and supplies, and a rocking chair positioned near the hearth. It was simple and masculine, but spotlessly clean. "I know it is not much," Finn said, suddenly sounding uncertain. "I can build more rooms if you want, make it more comfortable." "It is perfect," Lily said honestly. "Truly." Finn built up the fire while Lily explored, trailing her fingers over the book spines and examining the few personal items he possessed. There was a tintype photograph on a shelf showing a stern-looking couple with a young man and a small girl. Finn's family, she realized, her heart aching for the loss he had endured. "Are you hungry?" Finn asked. "I have venison stew I can heat up." "That sounds wonderful." They ate in companionable silence, the crackling fire and the night sounds outside the only interruptions. Lily was acutely aware that they were married now, alone together, and the bed in the corner seemed to loom large in her awareness. She had no experience with men with intimacy, and while she trusted Finn, she could not help feeling nervous. As if sensing her anxiety, Finn said, "You can have the bed, I will sleep on the floor." "Finn, no, this is your home. I cannot kick you out of your own bed. You are my wife now. What is mine is yours." He stood and gathered blankets, making himself a pallet near the fire. "We have all the time in the world, Lily. There is no rush for anything." Relief and something that might have been disappointment washed through her. "Thank you for understanding." That night, lying in Finn's bed surrounded by the scent of pine and leather and something uniquely him, Lily stared up at the wooden beams overhead and marveled at how completely her life had changed. A week ago she had been a servant in her uncle's store. Now she was a wife, living in the mountains with a man who treated her like she mattered. The days that followed fell into a rhythm that felt both strange and right. Finn rose at dawn and did his chores, tending to the horses, checking his traps, chopping wood, hunting. Lily took over the cooking and cleaning, tasks she had done for her uncle, but that felt entirely different when done for her own household. She explored the area around the cabin, discovering the creek Finn had mentioned, a beautiful clear stream that burbled over smooth stones. She found patches of late-blooming wildflowers and a meadow where deer grazed in the early morning. Finn was patient and kind, teaching her how to do things she had never learned in the city. How to shoot a rifle, though the recoil startled her the first time. How to identify animal tracks. How to preserve meat and vegetables for the winter. He was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. He brought her fresh water each morning. He carved her a shelf for her book. He made sure she never went cold or hungry or felt afraid. And slowly, carefully, they learned each other. Lily discovered that Finn hummed tunelessly when he worked, that he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and made her laugh, that he read the books on his shelf, mostly practical volumes about farming and survival, but also a few novels he claimed to have inherited from his mother. "She loved stories too," he said one evening as they sat by the fire. "She used to read to us every night when we were children, adventures, romances, even some fairy tales." "Your mother sounds like a wonderful woman," Lily said softly. "She was." Finn stared into the flames. "She would have liked you." Lily's throat tightened with emotion. "I wish I could have met her." Finn reached out and took her hand, the first time he had initiated such contact. His hand was warm and rough, completely engulfing hers. "She would have loved that you still believe in good things. That you have not let the world make you bitter." "I came close," Lily admitted. "There were times I wanted to throw my book in the fire and be done with hope altogether. But you did not." "No, I could not. It felt like giving up the last piece of my mother." They sat in silence, hands linked, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls. Lily felt the distance between them closing, not just physical but emotional. This man understood her in ways no one ever had. October gave way to November, and the weather turned colder. The mountains transformed into a tapestry of gold and red, breathtakingly beautiful. Finn taught Lily how to preserve the autumn harvest, how to prepare for the harsh winter he said was coming. They worked side by side, and Lily found joy in the simple tasks, in the partnership they were building. One afternoon, as they were stacking firewood, Lily asked, "Do you ever regret it? Asking me to marry you so suddenly?" Finn paused, an armful of logs in his grip. "No. Do you regret saying yes?" "Not for a moment," Lily smiled. "I just worry sometimes that you felt obligated. That you saw a woman in trouble and your protective instincts took over." Finn set down the wood and turned to face her fully. "Lily, I did not ask you to marry me out of obligation. I asked because I wanted to." Because the thought of you staying in that store, being mistreated and undervalued was unbearable. Because I wanted to wake up every day and see your face. Because you make me feel less alone. Lily's breath caught. Finn. He stepped closer, his green eyes intense. I know I am not a romantic man. I do not have pretty words or grand gestures, but I care for you deeply. More than I thought I was capable of caring for anyone after I lost my family. You have given me more than pretty words, Lily said, her voice thick with emotion. You have given me respect and safety and a home. You have made me feel valued. That is worth more than any poetry. Finn reached out and cupped her face with one large, gentle hand. May I kiss you? Lily nodded, unable to speak. He leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was soft and tentative, almost reverent, and Lily felt warmth bloom through her entire body. When he pulled back, his eyes searched hers. Was that all right? It was perfect, Lily whispered. From that moment, something shifted between them. The careful distance they had maintained dissolved. Finn began to kiss her goodnight before they retired to their separate sleeping arrangements. He held her hand when they walked together. He pulled her into his arms when she was cold, sharing his warmth without hesitation, and Lily found herself falling more deeply in love with each passing day. She loved the way he looked at her, like she was something precious. She loved his quiet strength, the way he could fell a tree with practiced swings of his axe, then turn around and handle a wounded bird with infinite gentleness. She loved the sound of his voice in the darkness, telling her stories about the mountains and the animals that lived there. It was in late November, as the first snow began to fall, that Lily finally gathered the courage to speak what was in her heart. They were sitting before the fire after supper, Lily reading aloud from her fairy tale book while Finn whittled a piece of wood. Finn, she said, setting the book aside. I do not want you to sleep on the floor anymore. He looked up, his hands stilling. Lily, I am your wife. I want to be your wife in all ways. She felt her cheeks burn but pressed on. I love you. I have loved you for weeks now, maybe from the very beginning. And I am tired of us sleeping apart when all I want is to be close to you. Finn set down his knife and wood, his expression serious. Are you certain? I will not rush you. I have waited this long. I can wait longer. I am certain. Lily stood and held out her hand. Come to bed with me, please. He rose, towering over her, and took her hand with a gentleness that belied his size. I love you too, Lily. I have been afraid to say it, afraid you did not feel the same, but I do. I love you more than I have words for. That night, in the warmth of the cabin with snow falling softly outside, Finn and Lily became husband and wife in the fullest sense. He was patient and tender, guiding her through her nervousness with whispered reassurances and gentle touches. And when they finally came together, Lily felt a completeness she had never imagined possible. This was what the fairy tales had always promised, but never quite described. The profound intimacy of two souls connecting, the vulnerability and trust and overwhelming love. Afterwards, lying in Finn's arms with her head on his broad chest, listening to the steady thrum of his heartbeat, Lily said, They all laughed at me for believing in fairy tales. But you made my life a fairy tale, Finn. You are the hero I was waiting for. Finn pressed a kiss to the top of her head. You did not need a hero. You were always strong enough on your own, but I am honored to walk beside you, to share this life with you. We can be strong together, Lily murmured, sleep pulling at her. Yes, Finn agreed. Together. Winter descended on the mountains with fierce intensity. Snow piled high against the cabin walls, and the world became a pristine white wilderness. Lily and Finn were snowed in for weeks at a time, but far from feeling trapped, Lily reveled in the enforced closeness. They spent long evenings by the fire, talking about everything and nothing, learning the smallest details of each other's lives. Finn told her about his childhood in Pennsylvania, his father who had been a carpenter and taught him to work with wood and his hands, his mother who had filled their home with laughter and music, his little sister Sarah who had been only 8 when she died, full of mischief and joy. "I could not save them," he said one night, his voice raw with old pain. "I was in town, selling furniture my father and I had made. By the time I got back, the house was nothing but ash and charred beams. They told me it happened fast, that they did not suffer, but I will never know for certain." Lily held him as he grieved afresh, offering what comfort she could. "It was not your fault. You know that, do you not?" "I know it in my head. My heart has been slower to accept it." "They would not want you to carry this guilt," Lily said softly. "They would want you to live, to be happy." Finn looked at her with eyes that glistened in the firelight. "You make me happy, happier than I have been in 5 years. Happier than I thought possible." "Then let that be their gift to you," Lily suggested. "Let your happiness honor their memory." It was a turning point. Finn began to speak of his family with more warmth than sorrow, sharing happy memories instead of dwelling on the tragedy. And Lily shared her own stories, the pain of losing her mother so young, the years of mistreatment at her stepfamily's hands. "I used to wonder what was wrong with me," she confessed. "Why my stepmother and stepsisters hated me so much, why I was not good enough." "There was nothing wrong with you," Finn said fiercely. "They were small, cruel people who hated you for being better than them, for having kindness and hope when they had none. I see that now. But for so long I believed them." Finn pulled her close. "You never have to believe those lies again. You are extraordinary, Lily. Every single day with you is a gift." Christmas came, and Lily made the cabin festive with pine boughs and holly berries she had dried in the autumn. She cooked a special meal with supplies they had stored, and Finn surprised her with a rocking chair he had been secretly building in the barn, perfectly sized for her with her name carved into the back. "Oh, Finn," she breathed, running her fingers over the smooth wood. "It is beautiful." "I wanted you to have something that was just yours," he said. "Something special." Lily threw her arms around his neck, kissing him soundly. "You are the most wonderful man in the world," he laughed, a sound that still surprised her with its richness. "You might be biased." "Absolutely," she agreed. "And I would not have it any other way." They made love in front of the fire that night, the Christmas feast forgotten, celebrating their union and their love with passion that had grown deeper and more confident with practice. Lily had never imagined that physical intimacy could be so consuming, so joyful. Every touch, every kiss felt like a revelation. "I love you," Finn murmured against her skin. "My beautiful wife." "I love you," Lily replied, lost in the sensation of his hands on her body, his weight pressing her into the fur rug before the hearth. "Always." Winter slowly released its grip as February arrived. The snows lessened, and on clear days, Finn would bundle Lily up and take her on walks through the transformed landscape. He showed her frozen waterfalls that looked like sculptures of ice, animal tracks crisp in the snow, and a hot spring he had discovered years ago, where they bathed together in steaming water while snow drifted down around them. "This is magic," Lily said, floating in the warm water with snowflakes landing on her upturned face. "Real magic. Better than your fairy tales," Finn teased, pulling her against him. "Different. The fairy tales gave me hope when I had nothing else. But this, our life together, this is hope fulfilled. This is the happy ending I dreamed of." "It is not an ending," Finn corrected gently. "It is a beginning. We have our whole lives ahead of us." Lily smiled and kissed him, tasting snow and spring water on his lips. "Then I cannot wait to see what comes next." What came next was spring, arriving with explosive force. The snow melted, revealing new green growth. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows. Birds returned, filling the air with song. And Lily discovered she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, her monthly courses absent and a strange queasiness affecting her in the mornings. But it was Finn who confirmed it, his experience with animals making him attuned to the changes in her body. "You are carrying our child," he said one morning, his hand splayed across her still flat belly, wonder in his voice. Lily covered his hand with hers. "Are you happy?" Happy does not begin to describe it. He lifted her into his arms, spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to stop. "We are going to have a baby, a family." "Are you hoping for a boy or a girl?" Lily asked. "I do not care, as long as the child is healthy and you come through the birth safely." His expression turned serious. "We should think about having you closer to town as the time approaches." "There is a midwife in Red Bluff." "I am not going back there," Lily said firmly. "I will not give birth in that town where people mocked me. Then we will find another option. Maybe Sacramento. There are doctors there." They spent the spring and summer preparing for the baby's arrival. Finn built a cradle of smooth pine, carving animals along the sides. Deer, bears, eagles. Lily sewed tiny clothes and blankets from fabric they purchased on a trip to a settlement north of Red Bluff. They talked endlessly about names and what kind of parents they wanted to be. "I want our child to know love," Lily said. "Real, unconditional love, not the kind that comes with expectations and demands." "Our child will know love," Finn promised, "and they will grow up free, wild, and safe in these mountains." As Lily's belly swelled, Finn became even more protective, barely letting her lift anything heavier than a book. She found it both endearing and exasperating. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she protested when he insisted on carrying the water buckets. "I know, but humor me. I need to take care of you. You do take care of me, every single day." In August, they made the journey to Sacramento, a 2-day trip on horseback that left Lily exhausted. But Finn had arranged for them to stay with a doctor and his wife, and when Lily's time came in early September, she was in capable hands. The labor was long and difficult, lasting nearly 20 hours. Finn paced outside the room, his face drawn with worry, occasionally hearing Lily's cries of pain, and having to be restrained from bursting through the door by the doctor's wife. But finally, as the sun rose on a clear autumn morning, their son entered the world with a lusty cry. The doctor brought Finn in, and he knelt beside the bed where Lily lay exhausted but radiant, their baby in her arms. "A boy," she whispered. "A healthy, perfect boy." Finn touched the baby's tiny hand with one large finger, his eyes suspiciously wet. "He is beautiful, like his mother." "He has your eyes," Lily observed. The baby's eyes were indeed green, though newborn dark. "And your stubbornness, I suspect, given how long he made us wait." They named him Finn Jr., though they immediately began calling him by his middle name Thomas after Lily's father, not her uncle. Little Thomas was a good baby, nursing well and sleeping in reasonable stretches. After a week of recovery, they made the journey back to their mountain home, Lily cradling Thomas in her arms while Finn led the horses with exaggerated care over every rough patch of ground. The first year of Thomas's life passed in a blur of sleepless nights and overwhelming love. Lily had never known she could feel such fierce protectiveness, such complete devotion to another being, and watching Finn with their son made her love him even more. This huge, powerful man cradling their tiny baby with infinite gentleness, singing off-key lullabies, and making silly faces to coax out smiles. "You are a wonderful father," Lily told him one evening as he rocked Thomas to sleep. "I had good examples," Finn said quietly. My parents showed me what love looks like. I am just trying to pass that on. You are doing more than trying. You are succeeding. When Thomas was nearly 2, Lily became pregnant again. This pregnancy was easier than the first, and she carried it with confidence born of experience. In May of 1881, they welcomed a daughter into the world, born in their cabin with the help of a midwife from a nearby settlement. They named her Sarah, after Finn's lost sister, and she had Lily's blonde hair and a disposition as sunny as a summer day. Their family felt complete. Thomas, a serious toddler who watched everything with his father's intense green eyes. Sarah, a baby who smiled at everyone and everything. And Finn and Lily, more in love than ever, their bond strengthened by the children they had created and the life they had built together. "Do you ever miss town?" Finn asked one evening as they sat on the porch, watching Thomas chase fireflies while Sarah slept in Lily's arms. "Other people's society," Lily laughed. "Not for a moment. I have everything I need right here, my family, my home, my fairy tale ending." "It is not an ending," Finn reminded her, echoing words he had spoken years before. "Just a new chapter." "Then it is the best chapter yet," Lily said, leaning against his solid warmth. The years flowed past like the creek beside their cabin, constant and life-giving. Thomas grew tall and strong like his father, learning to hunt and track and survive in the wilderness. Sarah proved to have her mother's love of stories, and Lily spent countless hours reading to her from the old fairy tale book, now more worn than ever. When Thomas was 7 and Sarah 5, they welcomed another child, a boy they named Peter. And 2 years after that, another daughter, Grace. Their cabin, which Finn had expanded several times, rang with the noise and chaos of 4 children. It was exhausting and wonderful, and everything Lily had never dared to dream. 4 children, Finn marveled one night after they had finally gotten everyone to bed. "How did we become people with 4 children? One at a time," Lily said, collapsing into her beloved rocking chair. "And I would not change a single thing." Finn knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. "Neither would I. You have given me a life I never imagined possible, Lily. A family, a purpose, joy." "We gave it to each other," Lily corrected. "I was lost before I met you, broken. You showed me I was worth loving. You were always worth loving, always." He kissed her softly. "My fairy tale girl." "Your wife," Lily said. "Your partner, your love." "All of those," Finn agreed. "Forever." The children grew and thrived in the mountains. Thomas became a skilled hunter, providing for the family alongside his father. Sarah developed a talent for drawing, sketching the wildlife and landscapes around them with surprising skill. Peter was the family clown, always making everyone laugh with his antics and stories. Grace, the baby, was quiet and thoughtful, content to sit for hours watching the world around her. Lily taught them all to read and write, using her fairy tale book and the other volumes they had acquired over the years. Finn taught them practical skills: how to build and repair, how to read animal signs, how to survive in the wilderness. Together, they raised children who were confident and capable, who knew they were loved unconditionally. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Finn took Lily to the hot spring where they had bathed in the snow so many years before. It was summer now, the night warm and star-filled. 10 years, Lily said, floating in the water beside her husband. "Can you believe it?" "Best 10 years of my life," Finn said. "Though you do realize we are getting old," Lily splashed him. "Speak for yourself, I am in my prime." Finn caught her around the waist and pulled her close. "You are beautiful. More beautiful now than the day I first saw you in that store, clutching a can of peaches and looking terrified." "I was terrified," Lily admitted, "of you, of this huge, intense man who filled the entire room." And now I know you are the gentlest man alive, my protector, my partner, my greatest love." She kissed him deeply, tasting chlorine and love. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible to everyone else. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for saying yes," Finn whispered against her lips. "For taking a chance on a mountain man with nothing to offer but a cabin and a heart that belonged to you." They made love under the stars, the water warm around them, their bodies familiar yet still capable of surprising each other with pleasure. Afterwards, they lay on the smooth rocks beside the spring, wrapped in blankets, and talked until dawn began to lighten the eastern sky. "You think the children are managing?" Lily asked. They had left Thomas, now 13, in charge for the night, a test of his growing maturity. "They are fine. Thomas is responsible and Sarah will keep the little ones in line." Finn stroked her hair. "We needed this, just us." "We did," Lily agreed. "I love our children with everything I am, but I love you too. I never want us to lose this, what we have. We will not. I promise you that." More years passed. The children began to venture beyond the mountain, Thomas eventually meeting a girl from a nearby settlement and courting her with his father's quiet intensity. Sarah talked about going to a city, maybe San Francisco, to study art. Peter and Grace were still young but showing signs of their own dreams and ambitions. "They are going to leave us," Lily said one evening, a touch of sadness in her voice. "They are growing up," Finn corrected. "That is what we raised them to do. To be independent and strong and capable of making their own choices. I know, but I will miss them. So will I, but they will come back, and they will bring us grandchildren someday if we are lucky." The thought made Lily smile. Grandchildren, that seems impossible. "Everything about our life seemed impossible once," Finn reminded her. "But here we are." Thomas married his sweetheart, a practical young woman named Emma, when he was 21. They built a cabin near Finn and Lily's, close enough to help but far enough to have their own space. Within 2 years, they had given Finn and Lily their first grandchild, a boy they named after Finn. Sarah did go to San Francisco, studying at an art school and sending home drawings and paintings that brought tears to Lily's eyes. She returned after 3 years with a portfolio of work and a quiet determination to make her art her life. She set up a studio in the barn and began selling her paintings to tourists and collectors, finding success beyond what anyone expected. Peter became a guide, taking wealthy Easterners on hunting and fishing expeditions through the mountains he knew so well. Grace married a young doctor and moved to Sacramento, where she helped him establish a practice and became known for her charity work with children. Lily and Finn, their nest empty but their love as strong as ever, settled into a new rhythm. They took long walks together, revisiting all the places that had marked their years together. The meadow where Finn had picked those first wildflowers, the clearing where they had first made love. The hot spring that had witnessed so many intimate moments. "We have built a good life," Lily said on the evening of their 25th wedding anniversary. They were sitting on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains in shades of orange and purple. "Against all odds, we built something beautiful." "You built something beautiful," Finn said. "I just provided the location." "That is not true. You provided love and safety and partnership. You made me believe I deserved happiness." Lily took his weathered hand in hers. "They all laughed at me for believing in fairy tales. My stepmother, my stepsisters, the women in Red Bluff. They said I was foolish and naive. You proved them wrong. We proved them wrong, because you made my life the fairy tale I always believed in. The handsome hero, the rescue, the true love, the happy ending," she smiled. "Except it is not an ending. It just keeps getting better. Finn pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, fitting perfectly into the space that had always seemed made for her. "I love you, Lily Kaine. I loved you from the moment you placed your hand in mine and said yes. I will love you until my last breath and beyond. And I love you, Finn Kaine, my mountain man, my hero, my heart." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars emerged one by one, the same stars that had witnessed their first awkward conversations, their first kisses, the births of their children, and all the moments in between. The mountains stood eternal around them, sheltering the life they had built from the world that had once been so cruel. Inside the cabin, Lily's fairy tale book rested on a shelf, its pages yellow with age but its stories intact. Stories of courage rewarded, kindness recognized, true love triumphant. Stories that had sustained a lonely girl through her darkest days and given her hope when hope seemed foolish. But Lily did not need the book anymore to believe in fairy tales. She lived one every day, in the arms of the man who had seen her worth when others saw nothing, who had given her a home when she was homeless, who had loved her unconditionally when she had forgotten how to love herself. The fairy tale she had always believed in was not about princes and castles and magic spells. It was about finding someone who cherished you exactly as you were, about building a life together based on respect and partnership and unwavering devotion, about the courage to say yes to an uncertain future because you believed in the person asking. It was about the mountain man who had walked into a general store and changed everything with his quiet strength and gentle heart. It was about the girl who never stopped believing that somewhere, somehow, her happy ending was waiting. And it was about both of them choosing each other, every single day for the rest of their lives. As darkness settled over the mountains, and the first chill of evening raised goosebumps on their skin, Finn and Lily rose and went inside their cabin, closing the door on the wild world outside. They had built their sanctuary here, raised their family, and grown old together in these mountains that had given them refuge and peace. And tomorrow, as the sun rose over the peaks and valleys they called home, they would wake in each other's arms and begin another day of their fairy tale life. A life earned through courage and faith, through choosing love over fear, through believing that magic existed even in the hardest of times. They had laughed at her for believing in fairy tales, but Lily had the last laugh after all. Because her mountain man had made her life everything she deserved and more. A love story written not in flowery words or grand gestures, but in quiet moments and steady devotion, in children raised and grandchildren cherished, in 25 years of choosing each other again and again. The fairy tale was real. It had always been real. And it would continue to be real for all the years they had left. And in the legacy they left behind in their children and grandchildren, who would carry forward the knowledge that true love existed, that courage was rewarded, that believing in good things was never foolish. Lily Kaine, once Lily Norwood, the fairy tale girl who refused to give up hope, had found her happy ending. And unlike the stories in her book, this ending was just the beginning of forever.